Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us. I'm Brian from the Smart Health Leadership Center at NUS-ISS, and today we'd just like to take some time to talk about career development programs with us in NUS-ISS. So I'm from the Smart Health Leadership Center. It was set up in 2015 with the vision to transform future experience of health through data, technology, and innovation. And at our center, we do this through trainings, do this through research, and as well as consulting projects. Why were we set up in the first place was really due to the needs of our Singapore population. We are acutely aware that we have an aging population. By that, what we mean is by year 2030, almost 1 in 4 of us will be 65 years old and above. And with that comes a different set of challenges that we need to face. In terms of the healthcare system, it needs to change in order to serve these new needs of these people. We are already moving our way towards that. But then also bear in mind, an aging population also means that we have an aging workforce. So how might we transform healthcare itself or social care in order to cope with an aging workforce as well? We are also aware that there's a change in clinical needs and in the landscape of clinical needs. In the past, it used to be more about acute care. That's where people, when you fall sick, you go downstairs and see the doctor. When you fall sick, you go to the hospital, right? So that's all about a more of an acute care model. And today, if you're going to stay with that acute care model, what we will see is then our hospital beds being filled up to the brim, which is already happening in the past 5-10 years. So that model is not sustainable. We need to shift from that model to something else, towards a more preventive care model, right? So where the primary care plays a bigger role, where social and community care plays a bigger role, and to stop people from coming in to the hospitals, for example. And with all these things, we also need to be mindful of the cost of healthcare. How might we keep healthcare accessible to people over time? We know that there's a rising cost in terms of medication, and there's a rising cost in care, and as the care needs change, we need to be mindful of how do we keep these things affordable and accessible for everyone in Singapore. So that was the reason why we set up a Smart Health Leadership Center, and that's also the reason why we started to offer the professional diploma in Smart Health Leadership. Right, so this professional diploma is here to support people who would like to learn some transformation skills in order to solve some of these challenges that we are facing in the health industry at this point. So maybe just to tell you a little bit about the program itself before we jump into what it covers, right? So we believe in integrated skills, right? So throughout our program, there'll be 5 different courses that you would go through before completing a capstone project at the end. In order to get the professional diploma. So all the 5 courses fulfills a certain domain, right? So in terms of design, in terms of technology, in terms of process, in terms of systems. So we believe that all these different skills will complement one another when it comes down to transformation work, right? So we also believe in a 360 leadership where everyone in an organization plays a role in your transformation journey. It doesn't matter if you're somebody that is high up in terms of authority within an organization, or are you just a junior nurse or junior executive, right? So everybody plays a certain role when it comes down to transformation. Everybody will need to speak the same kind of language in order to bring us into the new model of care. We also believe in experiential learning. So you'll find that throughout all our courses that we offer, we believe that you need to practice in order to understand the different mindsets and things that we are trying to impart, the skills that we're trying to impart. So we believe heavily in that. Therefore, we have the Capstone Project at the end, where you'll be able to practice all the different knowledge and skills that you have learned from all 5 programs onto a real industry project. And from there, you learn through experience of implementing and going through the research process and all that. Right. So we also believe in delivering impact to the industry. Again, back to the Capstone Project that you would be doing. So through the Capstone Project, you deliver immediate results, and we can then see that impact as it grows over time. So what are these 5 courses that we offer? We offer service design. So we teach people about design thinking. The second one, we come in with a process lens. So we touch on business process re-engineering. And we come into the data lens as well, right? To talk about data storytelling. How do you take a data all the way from its raw state in order to present it to your management and make a point towards transformation? It come in from the technology lens to talk about, what are some of the emerging tech trends and what does it mean to us in terms of transformation? How do I then plan for this digital transformation journey? And last but not least, we also bring in the system thinking lens to appreciate the problem from a systemic level, to make sure that whatever changes that we make, we are aware of what is the downstream and upstream impact, right? With all these different 5 causes, after completing them, then we'll come into the Capstone Project, where you put all these different knowledge to practice in industry projects. I'll go a little bit more deeply into each of these courses. We typically encourage our students to start with the service design program because it allows them to frame their challenge a bit better from a human-centered lens. With design thinking, we'll teach you how to scope your problem, how to make it relevant for the people that you're trying to design for. Ultimately, whatever transformation that you're doing, it needs to have a true value and true impact to the people that we are designing for. So may it be the residents, may it be your patients in your hospital or your clinics, right? So it needs to be able to impact them and their lives. So therefore, this is why we have service design as one of the first courses that we would encourage people to take. And then we come in from the process lens, right? So once you know what is this impact that I want to drive at, then how do I design a process around that? How do I make sure that my process is efficient? In terms of the BPR course that we run, we also focus more around the integrated care process. In our class, you'll find people that is throughout the entire care continuum, from the social services all the way to acute care to post-acute care to palliative, for example. So with that, we are able to talk more about what is this relationship between these different services, health services. How might we have a better integrated care through business process re-engineering, right? So we also will bring in some change management pieces of information here as well. So once you have this, design this process, how do I then go forth and implement it? Then the data part is really important as well. We want to make sure that everything that we do, we are backed by some data so that it's quantified, then it's more convincing to our stakeholders. So throughout our program in data storytelling, we would go through bringing a raw data set all the way to telling a story with that. So if you do not have any data background, that is fine, right? You'll learn how to do that here at this course. If you have some data background, then that's good. Then you can focus more on the data storytelling part of it, right? So the whole idea is to how might we improve the way we tell stories with data so that we are able to better communicate them and so that we are able to better influence decision making. And then we come in from the technology lens as well, right? So how do we do a market sweep to understand what are the tech solutions that are already available out there? And then understanding my organization's model and transformation goals. And from there, then we try to understand what are the different factors that are impacting my organization that I should be looking out for. And therefore, then how do we prioritize different digital opportunities that we can embark on? Finally, in the digital transformation planning course, we will also talk about how do we then put this into a roadmap. How do we come up with a digital transformation plan so that the organization can then transform the digital landscape over a number of years. Last but not least, system thinking, like I mentioned before, is really to understand and appreciate the wider picture, right? So every transformation work that we do is inevitable that you will impact something downstream and upstream. So we need to have a systemic lens when we are doing transformation work. Make sure that we know that we're not having an adverse impact downstream, or how might we better leverage upon understanding the entire ecosystem. How might we then design a better solution knowing that, right? So system thinking will be able to let us to come up with more impactful solutions and that is more lasting in the long run. And last but not least, when you bring everything together in your capstone project, you'll go through these 3 phases, right? In the first phase, we'll ask the students to do a little bit of research to understand what is the current landscape like, what is my transformation goals from the organization that I'm doing this project for. How do I frame my challenge, and where do we want to go? And from there, understanding and having done that research, come up with some ideas in order to propose to the company. And phase 2, we go into designing and implementing some of these pilots, do some of these testing, and understand which of these solutions work, which of it doesn't. And then at the last stage in phase 3, then that's all about analyzing what were the insights, coming up with a conclusion, writing a report back to the organization. So at each of these junctures, there will be a presentation back to NUS-ISS, and there will also be a presentation back to the project sponsor from the sponsoring organization, right? So the company that sponsors you will have a project sponsor, and that person will also then be able to determine whether if you have met the transformation goals of this organization. So it makes this project very real. Whatever that you're doing does have an impact on the organization, will have an impact on the patients or the clients this social service agency is working with. So that's where we see a direct impact of our students' work. And through this real experience, you really understand how do you do transformation work in the space of health and social care. Right. So like I mentioned, for industry projects, for this, how we scope the project really depends on the company that we're doing it for. So if you're coming in as a public participant, right, so you might want to go back to your organization to ask, if there's a project that I could do. So from there, then we can work with your organization and scope this project with you. If you're coming in as a PCP, a professional conversion program, which I will talk a little bit more later, for that one, then it depends on the employers, right? So they will have to then define the scope of your project. So for every project, there will be a project sponsor that's determined by the company that would define the direction of your project. And also ultimately be the person who assess whether if you have met these transformation goals from the organization's perspective. If you're someone that's new to the company, so if you're from the PCP program, professional conversion program, then there should also be a project supervisor that's there to help you, to provide you with the necessary information or to help facilitate the connections that's necessary for the project to take place. In terms of team composition, you can work on this project individually or you can work as a group. So if it so happens that this organization would like a number of people to work on the project, then that's fine, right? So it can take up to about 5 members in a single project team to work on one of these transformation projects. So transformation projects can be really, really big. So sometimes having more people does allow us to do a little bit more work in a short time frame of 6 months. Right. So, but however, each member must be able to display what were they responsible for, so that then from the NUS-ISS end, we can assess whether if you have actually truly understood what was taught and applied it in the industry. And with that, we will have a NUS-ISS project advisor. So one of the lecturers from the Smart Health Leadership Center will be there to guide you throughout this entire project journey, to be able to handhold you and guide you. If there's any things that you have got questions along the journey, you can always, email one of us, email your advisor, and we can come in and help you. So we'll also be there throughout the entire project milestones in order to guide you as well. So don't worry too much about that. So what were some of these past projects that we have had that I could share with everyone? So one interesting one would be this that we did with the emergency department in one of the hospitals in Singapore. Their project initially was talking about, hey, in emergency department, we really have a wait time situation and people wait a really long time before they get to see the doctor. And that's an issue that we want to work on. But actually over time, they realized that what's the more pressing issue is that emergency department is a really stressful environment. It's a stressful environment, not just for the patients because, or the next of kin, right? So my loved one is ill, is giddy and is sitting there and no one is helping him. So, patients that come in are stressed. Same thing goes for the nurses and the doctors as well, because, patients come in with critical conditions and they have to attend to them. So it's a really high stress environment. So in the end, the project team decided that, okay, this is our long-term organization objective. How might we create a stress-free emergency department? So with the Capstone Project, this was some of the things that they started to explore. So one of the things that they started working on was patient wayfinding. Patient wayfinding was fine for them at the front of office. So in the waiting area, the patients know where to go because it's all well set up. But then at the back end of things, when they step into the back end, when they're in the looking for, say, the X-ray area or looking for the washroom in the emergency department, those were some challenges that they realized that patients were having. In order to have a more stress-free environment, they came from the patient's perspective to design a better wayfinding for them within the emergency department. However, what's more interesting in this project was that they started to realize that, doctors were having can choose the patients which they want to see. And with that affects the workload level of each of these doctors, right? So doctors were seeing different number of patients. And with that means that different doctors are having different stress levels as well. And the old way of appointing doctors to see the patients, there was also prevented nurses from ordering tests earlier. So they came up with a new patient allocation system whereby they are able to level this workload out so that every doctor sees the same number of patients. Because the patient's allocation right now takes place directly at a triage process, that also means that nurses now are able to order tests in advance, therefore improving the entire efficiency of the process. And with this also, the patients were able to have a better waiting experience because they know exactly which consultation room are they going to go to, right? So the patient allocation system is implemented much earlier after going through this Capstone project. So these were just some of the initiatives the emergency department embarked on. So after the Capstone project, we understand that they started to have this innovation culture going on. And that's great. So they are now looking for more innovative ways to create a more stress-free environment in the emergency department. Another project that we worked with senior consultants in a hospital was to look at digital transformation within the ward space. How do we get the right doctors with the right team at the right time to respond to critical situations of their patients? So that was a project whereby they look at how might we, allow medical devices to be connected to the phones that the doctors are holding, right? To send the alerts to them so that they know that, okay, in Ward 12 and bed 13, there's a critical case going on right now and I need to respond to it immediately. All right, so in the Capstone projects, if you know this kind of projects, it takes a long time to do, right? Because it involves vendors, involves lots of coding and testing at the back end. But so for this Capstone project, they scoped it down to a proof of concept, right? So if we're going to send an alert messages to doctor, what kind of alert should we be sending? How frequent should this alert be? We do not want to arrive at a point where there's too much alert and there's an alert fatigue with our doctors. What happens if you keep sending alert in your phones, like, if your WhatsApp message keeps ringing? The truth of the fact is that I will just stop looking at my WhatsApp group, right? So I think that's a common behavior, and that also happens for alerts, even in a medical context. So the whole project was around how might we do this so that we do not have alert fatigue, and what kind of information should we be sending so that we will be able to get the right help for the patients at the right time. So this piece is more around digital transformation work that we have done with one of the hospitals. We also did some projects in the social setting. So this one was quite interesting, was a collaboration between a hospital and as well as a social service agency that runs senior activity centers in the community. So this project was around exploring advanced care planning, ACPs, and end-of-life care. So typically in the past, the conversations around end-of-life care takes place in the hospitals, but by that time it's really too late, right? So by that time, your loved one is already in a state whereby they may or may not be able to make a decision on their own. So it's not a good time to start this conversation in a hospital as well, because we know that it's a taboo topic, right? So are you trying to say that something's going to happen to my loved one. So it's a touchy topic to discuss when your loved one is in a critical situation. So this project team, they started to explore when is the right time where we can have this conversation around end-of-life care. Can this conversation take place much earlier? And if so, where can we have this conversation be at? So they started working with senior activity centers in the community to start to see how can we bring this advanced care planning conversation out into the senior activity centers, and how might we actually do this and breach this topic tactfully so that people will be able to accept this kind of things, right? So if something happens to me, who do I want to make the decisions for me, right? If I want to pull the plug or do I not want to pull the plug, who should make that decision? This kind of things is really difficult, right? So, and this team really worked with the community to come up with a better process and working together with the hospitals and aligning the processes around end-of-life care. Okay, so when we talk about health industry, as you can now see in terms of the Capstone Project, is quite varied. In the health industry that this program addresses is also quite broad-based. When we talk about the health industry, we're not just referring to the hospitals, we're not just referring to the clinic chains that are out there. We are also interested in working with the social agencies. We are also expanding towards the pharmaceutical companies as well as medical technology companies as well. Ultimately, if we want to talk about an integrated care, all these different players will need to come together in order to work together so that we can be able to have a more cohesive care for our patients of the future. And in terms of job roles that we anticipate that you will be able to go into after going through this program, it could be people in the health and social sector areas that looks at operations, because operations often are very involved in improvement and innovation work within the organization. It can also be product executives or managers. So if you're in a pharmaceutical company that you're exploring solutions beyond the pill, right? So what else can we do rather than just producing medication for people? So such as an example would be in diabetes management, right? So many pharmaceutical companies are coming up with sub-companies that are actually under them to look at full solutions in terms of application, in terms of affecting people's lifestyle in order to manage their diabetes, right? So if you're a product executive that's exploring this kind of things in med tech or pharmaceutical, this could be a program for you as well. If you're a business analyst, program executives, they're looking to say rolling out programs into the community from the hospital level, this would be applicable for you. If you're doing strategic planning in this kind of organizations, for sure, this might be a program that's for you. So there's many different job roles that we think that through this professional diploma program, you'll be able to move into comfortably. In terms of the experience that we are hoping to get in terms of the cohort that's coming in, because it's a professional diploma program, we expect that people to come in to have some kind of relevant work experience. You need not to come in from having health or social kind of a work experience background. You just need to have some form of relevant work experience. So we understand during this COVID period, there might be a lot of people from, say, the hospitality end or retail. We see actually you have lots of complementary skills that can contribute to the health industry. So I have got previous colleagues when I was working in a hospital that was from the aviation industry. She was previously a customer service person in the aviation industry, and she joined healthcare. And where do we see the relevance here is that then, you know, she came in with the lens of how was customer service being run in the aviation industry for aircraft, airline company, right? So how might we recreate that kind of same quality experience in a healthcare service, right? So those are kind of experience that we are looking out for. So if you have got an operations background, customer service experience, product development experience, or some kind of a strategic planning experience, so those are all relevant skills that would then be able to help you to transit into the health industry if that's what you would like to do. But of course, we would prefer people that have got some kind of a health experience, perhaps personally, as a caregiver, as a patient yourself, perhaps, or have been volunteering with, say, social agencies, and you know that these are the challenges that the industry is facing, right? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the professional conversion program. So what I've explained to you previously so far in the last about 25 minutes or so is more around the professional diploma programs, right? So there are stackable courses that you can take if you're someone that's public, someone that's already in the health and social space. You can take any of those courses as and when you are available and then complete the entire program in a stackable format, right? So however, if you're someone that is looking for a professional conversion, that you're currently not within the health and social space, but there is a sector that you're interested in and would like to do transformation work within this sector, then this is something that you might be interested in. Right. So our NUS-ISS Career Services is here to support you on this professional conversion program journey. So they do provide some coaching and support. They also run this PCP program. We were really leveraging on them to get you guys some help. So what they do, they provide advice to individuals and also to employers looking for career transition opportunities and coaching as well. And of course, the PCP program, which I will be explaining to you right now. So the professional conversion program, what is it about? Is really to help PMEs to transit mid-career switches to switch into, in this case, into the health and social industry, right? So it has to go through some kind of a skill conversion so that you will be able to join this industry better. So to move into a new sector, to move into a new job role. So PCP is all about place and train program. So if you do sign up with the PCP program, if you already have an employer and you're joining them in a couple of months' time, this program is for you. If you do not have an employer right now and you're looking out for a job, or you have an employer right now, you're fully employed right now, but you're looking to transit into this industry, the career services people can come in and look for an employment opportunity for you. And so that they are able to find and place you and then go through our training and then eventually take on this new job role. So this is what the career services guys can do for you guys as well. Eligibility of PCP program, you have to be a Singapore or PR, Singapore citizen or PR. You have already graduated and finished your national service. And you have had at least 2 years of full-time working experience. So those are some of the generic requirements. Of course, you're expected that you're not in the current same job function. Therefore, you need to go through a conversion program in order to enter this industry or to start doing transformation work within the health industry. So you're newly hired within 3 months, or you're currently wanting to seek a new employment, right? So these are some of the eligibility criteria for the PCP program. Cost fees wise, I think you don't need to worry too much about this because if you're joining a new company, your employer will be the ones that would be forking out the fees for you. So don't worry too much about this. It's perhaps more from the employer's lens. But just to let you know, these are the general cost fees structure and all that. If you would like to know more about this, we can drop an email to us and we can explain to you about that. In terms of the entire PCP program structure, because we understand that you're transiting from one industry to the next, and once you join a new company, you might want to start working on the project really quickly so that you'll be able to go into this role fast, right? So after the enrollment process, all the courses will be completed within a 2 months time frame. And that's also where you can also start your projects once you start on your coursework, right? So within 6 months after starting the program, you should be finishing your entire PCP program. And at the end of this, you'll be awarded with the NUS-ISS Professional Diploma in Smart Health Leadership. Right. So in order to sign up for the PCP program, or you would like to find out more about this, you can drop an email to ISS Career Services at isscareerservices@nus.edu.sg to understand. And from there on, there'll be some program screening process, which constitutes of some online forms that you have to fill and a questionnaire that you have to fill online. followed by some interviews, right? So don't worry too much about that. Drop us an email. We can run through this process with you from there. And subsequently, NUS-ISS will help you look for an employer if you are currently not employed or you're looking to transit. Or if you're already employed, then that's fine, that's great. And from there, we can then confirm what's this project that you're working on throughout the next 6 months during the PCP program. So the next PCP run starts in 7th October all the way to end of November. So this is the time frame for the next program that we're running. If you're already in the industry and you're interested to know some of our programs, we are actually having classes already in end of August. We have got some classes starting from there. So you can go on to ISS website, there you'll be able to find the professional diploma website, and you'll be able to find out more about when these classes are running. So yeah, I think that's all the slides that I have today. Maybe we can look at some of the questions from you guys out there. So someone asked for service design course slides. To go back to the slides, is that? Okay. Yeah, so what about that? Oh, same question. Okay, can I have a quick look at service design course slides? How does the design thinking course in this program differ from other design thinking course by ISS? So both of them fulfill the fundamental same structure. You still learn about design thinking. You still learn about how to apply design thinking into designing services, except that for the case of for health services, the case studies that we use, the project that you'll be working on in that 3 days will be of a health flavor. So, well, before COVID, we used to bring people to the hospital. We will bring people down to the social service agencies to speak with nurses, speak with doctors, speak with care providers, right? And understand what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and from there, design innovative services for them. Right, so that used to be the typical process. Right now, I think now we are for this year at least, we're doing the classes online. The challenge that we are working on is around COVID-related services and how might we overcome COVID with some new design or new solutions. All right, so long story short, in terms of what is delivered, you'll be able to get the same knowledge. It's just that the positioning of what is taught might be slightly different. In this case, it's more health and social flavored. There might be some slight differences. Perhaps I would say that the generic one perhaps might focus a lot more on user experience, whereas service design for health, because it's for health, many times we deal with things such as value, things such as beliefs and culture, because those are the things that influence health behaviors, right? So in terms of that, there might also be some minute differences, but on the whole, it's pretty similar, I would say. What is the oldest PCP student in your class? Okay, the oldest students that I have generically in the entire program, I think we're maybe 50 plus years old, I would say. Current Capstone Projects students that we are mentoring right now are actually in quite senior positions in one of the healthcare classes in Singapore. Yeah, so we do have you know, people anywhere from junior nurses and executives all the way to senior management people attending our courses, and that also provides a wide perspective in terms of healthcare transformation. And when we come together and have this conversation, it also helps to breach that the solutions that we're coming up with, right? So some people will have the broad picture, some people really knows what's happening on the ground. And when you bring people together, then that's where they understand one another and be able to better design a better solution or transformation projects. Would it be too late for those age 40 and above to take PCP? I don't think so. I would encourage you to do that no matter what your age is. I think it's not a barrier. If the preferred candidate is someone who has some form of experience in the industry. Would it still be a conversion? Thanks. Okay, so I think that one in that particular slide where we say that preference, I think is in general, let me go to that slide. So be this one, right? So if you realize we are not preferring you to come from the industry, but rather you have some understanding of what are the needs in this industry. So that means that perhaps you're a caregiver yourself, you're caregiving for your parents, for example, or you have your own patient experience having gone through the emergency department before, having stayed in a hospital before, or you're volunteering right now for some social service agencies. I mean, those are some things that would definitely help you to understand what are some of the challenges that we are facing in the industry right now, and therefore maybe be able to connect better with the case studies that we teach in our class. And also be more passionate in terms of the project that you will be working on for the capstone. So it's more from that angle. It's not really a requirement, a hard requirement that we need people to have in order to take this program. For the generic ones, the stackable format, if you're not doing the PCP, yeah, for sure. If you have some kind of a healthcare, social care experience, and you can bring that to class and share it with the people in class, and that would be great, right? I think the link does not work. No. Can I have a quick look at who is actually qualified for PCP? Because I recall you said new hires with 2 years of experience, but in the slide relevant experience, you allow people with more than 2 years of experience. So yes, a minimum of 2 years industry experience. We're not too particular what industry you were in before. Just as long as you show that you have some relevant work experience that you're able to bring and contribute to the health industry. So like the example that I mentioned before, if you're currently in some kind of operations position, you're in some kind of customer service area or strategic planning, I mean, those are some of the perhaps preferred areas of work experience that we think that is more suitable in order to transit into, say, a transformation role in the health industry, right? But it's not necessarily a hard thing. So I think maybe just write to us and then we can have a conversation and see whether what is your past experience and whether if it's something that we think is relevant for the industry, right? So just drop us an email and then we can take it from there. Eligibility for PCP. Okay, so maybe it's this one that you're looking at. Right, so worked full time for at least 2 years. So no specific industry that's being said over here. Yeah. Not in a similar job function period to joining PCP means that you're not currently already doing transformation work in a health and social setting. Right, so you can be doing transformation work. You're previously doing improvement and innovation projects, but perhaps not in the health sector. So then this program will help you transit into the health sector. Or you're previously doing operations in other areas and you have had some improvement or innovation or transformation work done as part of your projects in operation setting, and now you would like to transit into the health sector. So then you can go through this program, understand different facets of from design to technology in a health context, and therefore be able to better contribute to the sector in transformation work. Oh, less than 3 months is a company work in. Less than 3 months work in the company I work in. Okay, so I'm not too sure about that particular question. So I think it's, yeah, you basically you need to have some work experience before for 2 years and that's it. Newly hired for, I think maybe you're referring to newly hired for 3 months, right? So I think that's for the PCP program, you need to have an employer before you can embark on a PCP program. If you don't have an employer, the career services guys here will help you look for an employer. So just write to us and then we can sort those things out with you. Okay, thank you so much. I think that's all the time that we have today. There will be a QR code that will be flashed on the screen. And with that, you can leave us some feedbacks for all the talks that we've been having at our Learning Festival. So thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, I'll see you in class. Thank you so much.